Hi everyone, my name's Amy. Today I'm here with my latest new toy. I've been wanting to get a lathe for a while now, and recently I was lucky enough to come across this Atlas TH36. Now, ideally I would have room in this shop for a larger machine, but there just isn't any space. This one is pretty solidly built for its size, so I'm hoping to get some good parts off of it. There's a little bit of work left to be done before I can really use it, but right now it's taking up all the space on my workbench, so I'm going to start by making a stand for it.
I'm building this lathe stand out of regular 2x4s. I just happen to run these through the jointer and the planer so they look prettier. I really like this style of frame because it's really easy to put together, and although the joints are not the strongest, it comes together pretty quickly. I'm mounting this cart on wheels because I know I'll have to maneuver it around a pretty tight shop. I'm using these leveling casters that together with 4 of them are rated for about 1,000 pounds. I estimate that the lathe itself is in the low hundreds of pounds, so this should be pretty sufficient. Now I'm adding a storage platform underneath, and conveniently I'll be able to use up some of this melamine that I had left over from a previous project. Next up is building the drawer. I was able to dig out 1 pair of heavy-duty drawer slides, and I only found 1, so the plan is to just build 1 giant drawer. To build it, I again went through my scrap wood collection, and although some of it is a little bit pieced together, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Here I've added 2 rails to the bottom of the drawer using pocket screws just to support the edges of the drawer bottom, which is made of some pieced together plywood sheets. This piece of plywood is what ends up supporting the drawer slide. I screwed 2 thin plywood rails to it, and that's what takes most of the force of the drawer slide, since there's only 2 screws holding the slide to the frame. Next, I machined some rails out of this plastic. I think this is high density polyethylene. I could have done this out of wood, but this plastic's pretty fun to cut. The purpose of these pockets is just to match with the features that are on the drawer slide. Next, I build the frame that supports the top surface of the lathe. The placement of these railings is determined by the location of the bolt holes on the lathe itself. For this part of the frame, I'm just adding a big piece here so I have lots of places to put bolts. This is where the motor is going to be mounted, and the hole pattern's pretty tight, and I might have to move it around depending on the length of the belt. So instead of having a really precise location, it's nicer just to have a big area where I could put bolts anywhere. Before I add the top, I'm just adding these posts. These are going to hold a piece of 80/20 that will be where I end up putting all of my tool holders. Around this time I did a test fit of my top surface and realized the scrap I had isn't actually big enough to cover the whole top, so I'm just adding some 2x4s here to fill in the gaps. And lastly, just to finish off the frame, I'm adding some 45-degree braces. Overall, just crossing my fingers that this all feels stiff enough. At last, the moment of truth, moving the lathe onto the cart. Overall, this was a pretty simple and straightforward process, but at the end, I got a little bit sloppy and was pretty lucky here. I think I could have broken my finger against the table edge, ended up with just a bad bruise. But as soon as it was on the cart, it was pretty smooth sailing from there.
Okay, with the lathe fully bolted down to the cart, I think I'm finally ready to move this into the shop, into its permanent location, as soon as I actually clear some space out for it. But overall, I'm really happy with how it came out. I've got this huge drawer down here for storage, and this rack here for tool holders. And I was able to make almost all of it using scrap materials that I already had lying around. As for the lathe itself, when I first got it, there was some squeaking in the spindle area, but I've since sort of bathed this in oil, and that seems to have gotten rid of it. I think both the crossfeed assembly and the tailstock will need to be taken apart to be serviced, but that'll have to wait until a later video. So yeah, that's all for now. Thank you for watching.